After 7 weeks of MLS action already, I think now is a good time for me to return to my roots and just sit back and break down the upcoming MLS match week. It's been too long since I've put in stone a prediction, and if I'm not putting my thoughts on the record, then how am I supposed to brag when I nail those scorelines? With the whopping 14 matches across Major League Soccer this upcoming weekend, I've gathered some of the biggest ones to break down and dissect. And to start with, we're looking at a top matchup in the Eastern Conference as teams 2 and 4 meet in Columbus, Ohio. It's the New England Revolution against the Columbus Crew. These are two sides that have been in top form to kick off the year, both winning more than half of their games so far. We'll start over on the Crew side as we've been witnessing a Wilfried Nancy masterclass over the past 3 weeks. After coming in this offseason from Montreal, Nancy had his work cut out for him to implement an exciting style of play into a group of guys that struggled to find success over the past 2 seasons. With the heavy reliance on the young guys coming up from Crew 2 and MLS Next Pro, as well as already established stars in the first team, Nancy's formula to attacking and attractive soccer is finally coming through. Throughout the first 7 games, the Crew have notched 17 goals, which is the most ever scored by a Crew team in their first 7 matches in their whole 28-year history. The more impressive stat for me, though, is that they've done it without their star number 9, Cucho Hernandez, and while having 9 separate goal scorers. Nancy's style of play is making just about every single player in that starting 11 a threat, and at this rate that they're going, I'm just waiting for one of their keepers to knock in that game winner. On the other side of the matchup, New England Revolution have also been on a tear recently as they picked up 12 goals in their first 7 matches, which puts them in the top 5 highest scoring teams in the league. Now, the attack hasn't been as fluid as Columbus's has, but with some exceptional strikes from outside the box, including Dylan Barrero's goal from this past weekend, they have that lethal touch about them. Another thing going for New England is their defensive line. Aside from their 4-0 loss to LAFC in match week 2, they've done really well at limiting chances against them. It helps when you've got one of the best keepers in the league in Georgi Petrovic, but even guys like Dave Romney have stepped up huge in these moments. I think what we'll find from this matchup is that the number 10 position will be one to watch on both sides. For the Crew, Lucas Zelarayan is being as productive as he's ever been in Columbus, as he's picked up 5 goal contributions in these first 7 weeks. And he's also earned a spot in the league's Team of the Week 3 times already. One thing I've really noticed this year is that Nancy's system has Zelarayan not only firing off in the attack, but also fighting tooth and nail on the defensive side of the ball too. Having one of your most talented players also giving everything they have effort-wise will typically lead to great outcomes. On the flip side, the Revs' number 10 spot is being fulfilled by Carlos Gil, as he's been cranking up to his full potential after coming back from a small injury earlier this season. With 4 goal contributions in 396 minutes, he's making an impact once almost every game. For this matchup, I truly feel that we are getting a matchup of the current Eastern Conference Titans, as both clubs look sound defensively and dangerous up top. At Lower.com Field, a place where Columbus have only won this year, I think this match could prove either of these teams as top dog. I hope we see goals, but I think both teams will be smart and will come away from this one looking at a 1-1 draw with the points shared. On to the next matchup. Well, we've talked about the best teams in the East, but what about the best clubs in the whole league? For this one, we're looking at the current Supporter Shield leaders in FC Cincinnati as they welcome the new kids on the block and the current 3rd place team in that race, St. Louis City SC. We'll start on the away side for this matchup as I finally get to talk about St. Louis City's season for the first time since I released my prediction video where I ranked them dead last in the West. And I know people have gone back to that video to talk that smack, and hey, I accept that. I'm sorry, and I'll say it here, St. Louis is not as bad as I thought they would be. But is that dream falling apart? After their record-setting 5 wins in a row to kickstart the year, St. Louis is now on back-to-back losses with another really tough match heading their way. To be honest though, I thought they performed very well in the first half against Seattle last week, and for some reason all of it just fell apart when they conceded 3 unanswered goals after the 65th minute. The shining light in this squad though, and a surprise for me, was João Klaus. Coming from a unique background without much top level experience, I wasn't too sure if Klaus would find his way in this league, but as a very strong and physical presence in that St. Louis front line, Klaus has blown past expectations as he finds himself with 5 goals and 2 assists already. I get that some people call this squad lucky, but For me, your hard work turns into those lucky chances, and with City's high pressing style of play, I think they've done well in putting off some top teams in this league. For this one, I think it could be a tough challenge. To go to Cincinnati, a very intimidating environment, and try to serve Cincy their first loss of the year, it seems unlikely, but that hasn't stopped St. Louis before. They've already put up some very impressive away victories in tough environments this year, like in Austin and at Real Salt Lake, so can they do it again? For FC Cincinnati, I'm just hoping they aren't scared of heights because I don't know if they've ever experienced that first place spot before. Cincinnati is one of only 2 clubs left not to face a defeat this year, and with that stat, you'd probably expect them to be absolutely dominating every single game, but it hasn't really been that way. Instead, we're seeing a different Cincinnati side this year. One that isn't scoring tons of goals, but staying extremely strong defensively. That's a huge reason as to why they find themselves in the spot they're in. Throughout 7 games, Cincinnati has kept 4 clean sheets and has conceded the least amount of goals in this league. The best part too is that they've come up against some of the best squads MLS has to offer. Nashville, clean sheet. Philadelphia, clean sheet. Seattle, clean sheet. Cincinnati has turned their biggest weakness last year into one of their best strengths, and as soon as they figure out that goal scoring side of the game again, they're going to be blowing past teams at the same rate we saw the Union doing it last season. Even though they're sitting top of the league though, head coach Pat Noonan has been very clear that his team is not playing up to their standards, which is a scary thing to hear. With Brandon Vasquez, Brenner, and Acosta coming off career seasons last time out, I think they will eventually find their way into those goal scoring charts, even if it isn't exactly like we saw in 2022. For this matchup, it's looking like Lucho Acosta will be missing with the shoulder injury he suffered last weekend, but I don't think the unbeaten streak ends here. I think Cincinnati will once again get a huge 3 points as they keep St. Louis scoreless by a score of 2-0. And finally, we'll wrap up this weekend preview by checking out one of the biggest rivalries in MLS history, the Portland Timbers hosting the Seattle Sounders. These are 2 very different squads at the moment. On Seattle's side, they have returned to their best after such a disappointment in 2022. After last weekend's victory over St. Louis City, Seattle finds themselves on top of the Western Conference with only 1 defeat from their opening 7 matches. On top of that, Seattle's winning in style. That 3-0 win last weekend was the 3rd match this season Seattle scored 3 or more goals, and one of those reasons for the high numbers is Jordan Morris, who, after injuries to both Ruidíaz and new signing Hebert, found himself at the number 9. Since that change, Morris has only compounded on his threat on goal and now currently leads the Golden Boot race with 8 in 7 games. As Seattle gets back their guys though, with Ruidíaz and Hebert returning this past weekend, how will Brian Schmetzer get the best out of this attack? Not only do you have Jordan Morris putting up incredible numbers at the 9 position, but you also have second string guys like Leo Chu making the most of his opportunity, as well as Ruidíaz grabbing a goal on his return. It's a good problem, but one that Schmetzer says keeps him up at night. I guess it doesn't really matter how you plug and play these guys because Seattle is confident in their game plan, and with everyone pulling in the same direction, Seattle's emerging as Supporters Shield contenders once again. On the other side of this game though is the Portland Timbers, and they have been far and away from their best. After scrolling through the Timber subreddit, I think just about everyone is down on this team at this moment, and it's hard not to be. Throughout these first 7 games, Portland have the least amount of shots in the whole league at 55, which is the worst attacking output this club has seen in any 7-game span in their whole history. Things are just not happening whatsoever on the offensive side of the ball, which is a huge worry, especially when you're coming up against a side that has only conceded 3 goals all year. To be fair to Portland, they have been struggling significantly with their injury list, and it wasn't until last weekend that some of their key attacking pieces got back onto the field in a long time. Club record signing Evander subbed off the bench this past weekend, but I think it'll still be a bit until we can see what he can actually do for this club. And typical attacking standout Dairon Asprilla has only been able to pick up 95 minutes this year after being out for the first few game weeks. I'm expecting this game to be pretty straightforward, but in this Cascadia rivalry, you can never be certain. In hopes that it doesn't backfire, I'm easily taking the Sounders here 2-0. And in some other quickfire predictions, I'm backing Charlotte FC at home against Colorado. Sporting Kansas City to pick up their first win of the year in San Jose, and a draw between Minnesota United and Orlando City. Other matches I'll be keeping track of include seeing if Philadelphia Union will be able to pick up a result against Chicago after competing in the Champions League midweek, and of course, the first El Tráfico of the MLS season as the In Shambles Galaxy host LAFC in that Sunday time slot. Let me know your predictions for any of the matches we'll see in Match Week 8. Get out to your local club and enjoy the weekend. Until next time, I'll see you.